You have to shut down the entire college, or you're gonna do it in sections?
No, they shouldn't have to. So the new main is being installed between the old main and the curb. So they shouldn't have to go any farther north than the old main. And I think it's 3 to 4 feet north of the new main, so they won't have to go into that north lane.
Okay,
So we should be able to keep it, you know, at a minimum, we'll have one lane closed, one open, but I don't see any full street closures.
okay.
We've been getting lots of tickets in municipal court related to this issue, so I would respectfully remind the citizens to please obey the traffic cones, et cetera, and the detour
Obey the sign,
signs.
and it's about safety. It's safety for our
Sure.
crews, safety for the public. I think, you know, our safety team worked on that plan to come up with that. They thought that was the best solution. You know, the other alternative was flagging. Well, then you're tying up resources. So I think we really came up with the best solution for that project.
Okay.
But yeah, if everybody just bear with us, plan a different route, we're doing the best we can. But, you know, those are just necessary infrastructure improvements that we have to do. So,
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. You good?
I think that's good.
City Administrators Report, Mr. Kerwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to mention briefly that we did have a contractors meeting last Thursday at the municipal court building. I estimate, based on the number of chairs, that we maybe had something approaching 50 attendees, which I thought was outstanding. That's a large number of citizens to attend any kind of a public venue that the city sponsors. It was extremely productive. We kept it right at an hour. Everybody was very respectful. There were a lot of excellent ideas generated. Anne Marie and I have been discussing all of the things that were brought up at length. I've talked to Elizabeth about some of them. Many of the things that were raised in that meeting have to do, again, just with local control, local accountability, the contractor's desire to deal with somebody local, but especially with that group, since they were all of a mind to come to that meeting. These are people that are trying to follow the rules, people that are trying to do the right thing and understand the city's role with the life, health, and safety aspect of this. So I was pleased that there was such a willingness from amongst our tradesmen and contractor community to be part of this transition and to help us understand what's working and what may need to change. So there was a lot of information that was exchanged. We've got a lot of work to do to try to figure out which of those ideas maybe have merit for further consideration and which ones maybe need to be more developed over time. But I do think that you're going to see comments that were made in that meeting. I think you're going to see the results of some of those in some of the proposed changes that are going to be made. And I want the public to know that no changes in fees or in permitting processes or anything like that are going to happen without it coming to this group first, to council first, so that there's not going to be kind of an unexpected change suddenly without any warning. So there will be continued opportunities to be heard on these matters. I also really want to thank Jeff and the group at the utility. We've had a number of meetings with them. They've generated a lot of feedback from us. I've had a lot of contact, more than I typically do as city administrator, with the frontline staff over at the utility, and everybody down to an individual has just been outstanding. This is critical because a lot of what our tradesmen are doing out there directly impacts the utility and vice versa. So I feel really good about the direction we're headed, and I anticipate, although it's not everyone's favorite thing, I think we're probably going to have a few more of these public type meetings, including the meeting with IBTS here in the immediate future, to help fine tune some of these ideas and turn them into policy. So happy to answer any questions anybody may have. Okay, thank you.
Well, I actually, I know it's kind of early in the process, but I mean, do you anticipate us trying to get hire a local, somebody to be here on the ground full time in Marshall and not just have to rely on people from Kansas City?
Well, one of the things that emerged during that meeting the other night is that we have a lot of inspections that are critical to life, health, and safety that pertain to like electric, for example, and one of the master electricians in town said, I would be willing to help with the compliance issues and inspection issues and things like that. Now, I don't know how that translates into hiring somebody or how that might look, but I do know that what that is that would mean that the group of professionals themselves were functioning like a guild, that they would essentially say, we know this work, we know these codes, and those of us that are the most credentialed are willing to be part of the inspection and compliance process. So I thought that was a pretty important moment, in that I can't say that I know exactly what that looks like in terms of what would it mean a person on the ground. I heard the phrase boots on the ground a number of times during that meeting. But I think, to speak to your question, I think that was a very important development, that we might have the credentialed experts that are doing the work in the community, helping the city with those compliance checks and things like that, and inspections. I don't want to overstate something before everybody's had a chance to consider and deliberate it. But as we've said, I don't think anything's off the table at this point. And, right now, of course, we're focused very heavily on the permits that people are applying for as they come in day to day. But the broader questions, we're also getting a lot of zoning related questions and questions about the function of special use permits and the various zoning categories and things like that. So all of these areas are going to require additional analysis and then a set of recommendations for you all to deliberate over before I think you make any decisions about the IBTS contract or hiring personnel or anything like that. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kerman? We're good. Business from the audience. Limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Any person, resident or non-resident, wishing to address the council may approach the microphone and state their name and comments. Is there anybody that would like to speak at this time?
If I may. Brian Krieger, Ward 1, I think. And good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, do you remember the little walk we took in order to have a look at my 14-year-long nightmare?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you do recall someone who works for the city of Marshall deciding that it would have been a great idea to place a telephone pole on top of the sewer line which leads out of my house? That happened. Crushed the sewer line where it meets the street. Anyway, you did make me a promise. And now, sir, you can't say you can't remember because that would be a total falsehood, sir, and that was looking at. My question is, when can I expect the city to come and take care of the overgrowth in the creek which runs next to my house? I live on Englewood, Placida, that creek. Now, sir, I have no idea what lives in there besides feral cats, but I do see this overgrowth as being unsanitary. Sir, I've come here at least once a year and just about beg the city to do their jobs. Also, if the city's employees did do their jobs, the taxpayers wouldn't be as perturbed as they are over their assessments going up as much as they have. I had something else, but it seems a little nasty if I say this, so I'll just leave this in your hands, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Kerman, Randy, I know that you already have been out starting, so do you have an idea when you'll be over in that neck of the woods?
We started going over all the ditches again this week, so I mean, hopefully within the next week or so.
Weather permitting?
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, everything we can reach with an arm, we're gonna get, so. It's,
Sir, I need just probably belongs to the city, and most of it is now encroaching on my yard. I could show you where the property line is, because the person who lived there before me had a fence on the property line. But now, like I said, a lot of that growth is now encroaching on my property.
And we will take a look at it. We'll get by there and look at it. Thank you. Mr. Harlow? Oh, he's
Local neighborhood.
Good evening. How y'all doing?
good.
My name is Mike Harlow, and I'm over in the 3rd Ward. And I don't know, this has been kind of an ongoing thing about this ditch that runs down through there. I'd kind of like to see those property lines, because from what I have studied on it and looked at, and it appears that there's only one section that belongs to the city, and that's right down there at the intersection. The rest of that thing, all the way back over to, Morgan Street, belongs to property owners. There's no easement there. That's not city property. That's private property. And unless proven, differently, my take would be is that I'm not really all that crazy about spending city money to go in there and take care of somebody else's property. I pay to have my yard mowed. If I wasn't such an old man, I'd do it myself, but I pay to have my yard mowed. I'm not real sure that I'm comfortable in paying to have somebody else's yard taken care of. And that's why I think it might be worth having Robbie or somebody to just take a look at property lines down through there, because I don't believe that property belongs to the city. I don't think there's any kind of an easement there whatsoever. I think that property belongs to the property owners. If that's the case, I would think the property owners should be taking care of that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harlow. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Chief? No? All right, moving on down to discussion and appropriate follow-up. Oops. And we have appointments to the library board. The following appointments to consider for the library board is Jackie Guthrie, that's a reappointment, term expires July 2028. Reverend Mary Williams, that's a reappointment, term expires July 2028. And Mr. Brennan, that's a reappointment, term expires July of 2028. I need a motion and a second to approve these appointments.
I move to approve the appointments.
Second, Gibson.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ordinances. The first one is amend the code of ordinance to clarify enforcement authority by including references to the municipal court. That's a second reading. Ms. Lewis, could you do the second reading by title only?
An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Marshall, Missouri to clarify enforcement authority by including reference to the municipal court.
Could I have a motion and a second to approve?
So move. Second, Allen.
Ms. Lewis, could I have a roll call?
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Paprick,
Yes.
Gibson,
No.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Brandt.
Yes.
Second ordinance, it's amend the code of ordinances to authorize notice by posting on property. Could I have the second reading by title only, please?
An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Marshall, Missouri to authorize notice by posting on the property.
Could I have a motion and a second to approve?
JD, I don't know if this is the time to, that question I was talking to you about, did you get a chance to talk to her about it, or is this gonna be?
Certainly, yeah, absolutely. So the question that was raised is that there's been some concern expressed to some of the councilmen that the the posting of the physical notice on the property itself could, could it lead to the government, the city government expanding its footprint or expanding its reach beyond what we're currently doing, trash, tall grass and weeds, and junk and derelict cars, and could people find themselves suddenly being posted for things that either aren't considered nuisances or maybe aren't covered in the nuisance portion of our code? And I'm going to turn this over to Elizabeth for a more concise answer, but I think the general response to that is that think of this particular modification to this section of the code as really just clarifying among the options we have for giving a property owner notice. There is personal service, there's registered mail, there's posting on the property, there's any number of ways you can do it. We want to make the posting on the property the recognized and typical and usual form of providing somebody notice, because we believe that's the best way to make sure that the property owner, and maybe not just the tenant, gets that information. It also has the effect of signaling to the neighbors that the property has been cited, or that there's been some action on the property. And it should also be noted that by the time that posting goes up, that means that there's already been an informal attempt to correct. So more of a friendly knock on the door, and do you need any help? Do you need any additional clarification, anything like that, so that by the time that posting goes up, it's a signal to the neighborhood that, okay, yes, the grass is long, however, the city's tried to remedy it, and the property owner hasn't done so, and now they've been physically cited. And we know by seeing that posting on the property that the property owner, even if that person may be out of state, has a duty to be aware of what's going on, and so that even if they have evaded registered mail or something, they have been given proper notice that their property is out of compliance. Do you want to take it from there?
What he said. I'm happy to elaborate, but Mr. Chairman is accurate that the intention for the use of the notices is strictly for nuisances that violate our ordinances. And I would again reiterate that, as Chief has talked about in previous meetings, that the police will attempt to have a conversation with the property owner and again try to help them with resources if they need help with an issue, if they aren't physically able to mow, for instance, and need help, that kind of a thing. And that it will signal to others that the city is making great efforts to address this issue. And that is an important reason to use the notice as well. And again, this just really clarifies that we can use this as an option to provide notice, which it's already allowed under the law. But and I don't know if you have specific
I think there was
examples.
concern about defining a nuisance, or, the expansion of something besides weeds, grass, trash, something, I just think there was concerns about, 15 years from now, could somebody come in and use this for something that's unintended consequences?
Well, I think that would be up to the council. Like, if you all decided to pass an additional ordinance that made something a nuisance under the law that is not currently a nuisance, that would be up to you.
But couldn't go against state statute, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, but really, that's neither here nor there. It would have to be what's already defined
Okay.
as a nuisance, unless the council were to create additional ordinances that
Okay.
would broaden that definition, which it's certainly my sense that the council does not have an intention to do that. And if something came up, that we could address it. But yes, so now again, we are basically talking about things like tall grass and weeds, trash, debris, possibly some vehicle violations if there are nuisance vehicles that are on yards and that kind of a thing. I would also note that if the city were to go forward with something such as a condemnation or something along those lines, that additional forms of service would be employed by the city. So I don't like to say some nuisances are lower level than other nuisances, but if there is some type of an issue with the taking of a property, such as a condemnation, then it would not just be the posting. So, I'm confident that this is a good route
Okay,
to take.
thank you. Yeah, I think that answers the
Yeah,
question.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was saying, I think that answers the question, yeah.
Okay. I might just add that, just so that the public understands, the posting requirement, the posting notice on the property does not supersede the state statutes, for example, that require us to have a hearing in order to abate tall weeds and grass. So there's a state statute that said the city cannot go in and mow somebody's property until they've had a hearing and they've given proper notice of the hearing. This posting does not supersede that requirement or somehow relieve the city of that requirement. It's just a refinement of that initial step of giving proper notice.
I move to approve the ordinance.
Second.
Ms. Lewis, could I have a roll call, please?
Patrick,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Brant,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Appropriation. Ms. Lewis, could you read that by title only?
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
I have a motion and a second to take to a second reading.
I make a motion, we take to second reading?
Second, Green.
I have a roll call, please.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Brant,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Can I have the second reading by title only, please?
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
I need a motion and a second to approve.
Motion to approve, Green.
Second, Patrick.
May I have a roll call vote?
Swisher,
Yes.
Brant,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
All right, fellas, is there any other council business we need to discuss at this time?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I'll do the first one first, and then after that all plays out, there is something else. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Craig Thompson to the position of mayor.
Do I have a second?
I second Gibson.
Ms. Lewis, could I have a roll call, please?
Brant,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Thompson.
Do I have to answer this?
You can abstain. Allen,
Yes.
Swisher.
Yes.
Now, can you clarify the term?
Okay, that term
Didn't let
will,
us discuss.
yeah, that term will run through April of 2026.
Okay.
And at that point, then there will be a mayoral election for the full 4 years.
Okay. Excellent.
Shaking your head.
I'm just messing with you.
I know you are.
Do you want me to? Okay. Well, there's something else before, I think you make the, okay. It's come up recently, in a meeting I was in last night with the, Main Street people who had come in from South Carolina and Iowa and such to, put on a presentation, and they did not believe me when I told them that, it was actually against the law to ride a bicycle on the square. I told them, well, we can go out there and look at the sign, but they just looked it up on their phones. They were amazed. They couldn't believe it. But I then today looked up a couple of things like Kansas City, Columbia, Chicago, and the only place that bicycles are restricted in those three cities, I didn't look up any others, are on sidewalks in business districts. And I completely understand restricting bicycle usage on sidewalks in business districts. But I would like to propose that we, that ordinance has been around, it precedes any of us. It was there when I was a kid. But I would like to propose that we rescind that ordinance, or, at least, we could do it by adding one word to that sign. no bicycle riding, rollerblading, et cetera, on sidewalks. Okay, and then, bicycles would be allowed to have the same rights and responsibilities as cars on the square. I've ridden my bike to the band concert lots, and I see bicycles up there all the time. I think it's time just to make the city code match up with the practices going on in the city. I don't know if that requires a motion to amend the city code, or if it's just something, okay, let's all just change the sign, add the words on sidewalks, or maybe everybody's against it, I don't know. But how would this take place?
Chief, do you have anything to say about that? Do you know how?
We talked a little bit
Oh, okay.
before we came in. Yeah, that ordinance is older than all of us probably combined. The ordinance, the way it says right now, is within 1 block of the square and the square, you have to walk the bike or the skateboard. You can't ride on it. That's been brought up, there's concerns with the motorized bicycles and everything else. We've had concerns on the square. I don't have a problem with them being on the street. I know that we've had problems with them being on the sidewalk, and pedestrians trying to walk with motorized scooters and bicycles and everything else has been a problem. To change it, we would have to change the ordinance. So the ordinance would have to be rewritten, and it would have to come back to you all for approval to have that ordinance change. So I don't have a problem with it. I understand where he's coming from. If you want to ride your bike, I think that just comes from, probably was the same time period when you rode your horse up there, you probably had to walk it too, so.
So, then we would just add that to the next meeting for an ordinance that has 2 readings?
We would need to have,
Have a committee, public safety
a committee
committee?
could do that, or Elizabeth can draw up
I can
a
draft
proposed amended
something.
ordinance.
Okay.
But I'd like to, visit with you, please, if that's okay,
Sure,
just to
yeah.
get a little bit more detail, and look at what's existing and exactly what you
Yeah.
might wanna change.
So would, not to interrupt, but like the e-bikes, I mean, I guess we gotta make sure that we get all of that stuff in there, don't we?
I have an e-bike, I wanna ride it on the square. But I think, obviously, those are the types of things that the committee could address. Or, like a lot of e-bikes, you can have the, electric part turned off, and so that might be an option. But we can explore all of those possibilities, I'd be happy to do that with you.
Sound good? Any other business?
But just to bring up the code deal that we passed a while ago, I've talked to a lot of contractors this week, and they've all had the consensus, they wanna have more meetings and more information brought in for this purpose, because they think it's a very viable, thing we need to do, but they also wanna get more input from the community, and most contractors are willing to do that. We just need to have more meetings and more information brought in.
Understood, yep.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second, Gibson.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?